Hey guys, Marcus Catkin for another Daily Fantasy Update. It's Tuesday, so it's time for the waiver wire edition of the Daily Fantasy Update. Got quite a few running backs actually this week that have kind of popped up and appear to be the starters or could be the starters moving forward. So I thought I should focus on those guys for you today. The first up being Tre Mason. I mentioned last week that Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator for the Rams, said that they're going to use the hot hand approach in St. Louis. And apparently the hot hand this weekend was Tre Mason. I mentioned last Thursday that Mason may be the guy because they did spend a third-round pick on him this year and kind of has the skill set to be a three-down back. Obviously, in this game, he was more of a two-down back with Benny Cunningham kind of coming in on third downs, but 0 touches for Zach Stacy, which I thought was very important. And maybe more importantly, Tre Mason looked really good in this game. For me, he's my number one waiver wire pickup this week. Assuming guys like Jerick McKinnon, who should be long gone if you've been listening to my daily fantasy updates. Next up, we got Denard Robinson, probably your number 2 waiver wire pickup as far as running backs go. A little bit before kickoff, we heard that he was going to be the starter, and man, did he flourish as the starter. Going into this game, no Jaguars running back had more than 62 yards rushing all year in a game. Denard Robinson had that in the first quarter. Now, I don't expect Denard Robinson to be the guy like this every week. I think once Toby Gerhart gets back, he's going to be in the mix. And I think Storm Johnson, who, vultured a touchdown away this weekend, I think he's going to be in the mix as well. So Denard Robinson, more like a flex option / running back 3 for me, not jumping into that running back 2 category like Tre Mason probably is. Next up, we got to talk about the Buffalo situation again. C.J. Spiller out for the year with his collarbone injury. And then Fred Jackson sounding like he's going to be out 2, possibly 4 weeks with his groin injury. So we got to look at the Buffalo Bills running backs and see who's going to get a majority of the workload there. So first up, Anthony Dixon. He's a guy that got all the work basically in this game once those 2 guys went down. He appears to be, the guy for right now. But the guy I really like is Bryce Brown. This is a guy that's been inactive so far all this year, but was a preseason favorite for a lot of people, including myself. And I think it's Bryce Brown that kind of comes into that C.J. Spiller role, and then Anthony Dixon in that Fred Jackson role. So I think they're both going to get touches. But as far as your fab budget goes, I think Bryce Brown is the better gamble out of the 2. I think he's the one that's going to see playing time even when Fred Jackson comes back, whereas I think Anthony Dixon will kind of go back to what he was when Fred Jackson was still around. So for me, the better value is Bryce Brown, but if you're in a normal waiver wire setup where it's just based on your record and you're picking up a guy, no fab budget involved, Anthony Dixon should be ahead of Bryce Brown. Finally, the New Orleans Saints, Pierre Thomas out 2 to 3 weeks with his shoulder injury. So this makes it really interesting because neither Mark Ingram nor Kyrie Robinson are really that pass-catching back that Pierre Thomas was. So in steps Travaris Cadet. This past weekend, 6 catches for 51 yards. Going to be great in PPR because that's what he's going to be. Not really involved in the running game, but more that passing down back. In fact, this past weekend, he was in for 20 snaps. It's a season high for him, and all 20 of those snaps were passing down plays. So Travaris Cadet, I think, is going to pick up kind of where Pierre Thomas left off in the passing game. And, personally for me, in a thing like DraftKings, he's a $3,000 player that I think could get you double-digit fantasy points in PPR on the cheap or in very deep leagues. Don't forget to subscribe below, guys, so you get my daily fantasy update, and follow me on Twitter @MarcusCatkin.